I think it's safe to say that most fans, not all, but most, were disappointed with Saw 3D, Jigsaw and Spiral from the Book of Saw. Well, good news, Saw fans, because with the release of this latest installment, Saw is back, baby! Hi guys, I hope you're doing really well. My name is Sarah and welcome to What the Horror, the channel where we talk about horror movies, old and new. That's right, Saw's back, baby! And as you probably saw from the thumbnail and title, today we are talking about and reviewing the newly released Saw 10, the latest sequel in the Saw franchise, the now nearly 20-year-old franchise. And we will be getting into my thoughts on the film. Just to let you know that this is going to be a spoiler-free review, for the most part. But I definitely will get into some spoilers towards the end of the episode, but don't worry, I will give you a heads up before I do. There's just a couple of things that I want to talk about with you, and they venture into spoiler land. But before that, let's get into the spoiler-free review. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Hoping for a miraculous cure, John Kramer travels to Mexico for a risky and experimental medical procedure, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. Armed with a newfound purpose, the infamous serial killer uses deranged and ingenious traps to turn the tables on the con artists. Saw 10 is the 10th installment in the franchise, the 9th sequel to the 2004 original, and acts as a prequel to the following 8 films. After the 2017 Jigsaw and 2021 Spiral from the Book of Saw, Saw 10 sees the return of using Roman numerals for the film title. It also sees the return of Kevin Greutert to the director's chair, having previously directed both Saw 6 and Saw 3D. Kevin also edited the first 5 films and Jigsaw, so he's a well-established member of the Saw family. We also have the return of writers Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger, who previously wrote both Jigsaw and Spiral. Oh, and that guilty little pleasure, Piranha 3D. And look, I'll be honest, I wasn't sure just how strong this script was going to be for Saw 10 based on their previous work, but boy did I end up with egg on my face, because this was a really strong script. Not quite Lee Winnell level, just gonna put that out there, but yeah, it was really strong. It was engaging, it was emotional, I feel like it was well paced and maybe only had 1 or 2 tiny plot holes in it. I will also say though that some of the events in the film, including some of the twists, which I'm obviously not going to get into right now, were a little predictable, but that could just be me personally. Them being predictable didn't actually take much away from those scenes, because there were other strengths within them that either outweighed or at least balanced out the predictability. Perhaps most excitingly though is the fact that Saw 10 sees the return of John Kramer. This is certainly the film where we get the most time with him, but also the most time with him as John, not Jigsaw. And that is important because this film is the most emotional entry in the franchise. It's the one with the most heart. And that is down to spending so much of the runtime with John as John. We literally follow him around his life, him having checkups at the hospital, grabbing a coffee, visiting a support group. I would say that the first half of the film is spent setting up the emotional aspect of it, both for John, but also for the audience in terms of the other characters. Little side note, I did find some humour in him attending a support group, seeing as how there ends up being a support group for his survivors. Saw 10 is interesting as well because this is the most human and complex version of John Kramer that we've had. My buddy Zach from CZ's World laughed at me in our Saw episode for showing a little bit of sympathy for John, but this film really leans into that. This is John Kramer antagonist, but also John Kramer kind of anti-hero. We're given moments where we see kindness in John, see him bonding with people, helping people, and trying to repay kindness from others. I also have to say that this is the film where his philosophy is the most coherent, where his teachings make the most sense. I'm not saying I'm fully on board with what he does, but there have been multiple times where his philosophy has been full of plot holes at best and contradicting at worst. This trap test is personal for John, but all of the victims are still given a fair chance to survive. This is a return to form where victims are given a choice. Before it got all twisted with Hoffman and Amanda rigging stuff or just adjusting the traps to their personality. This is still revenge in a way, but done in the Kramer way. It's not retribution, it's a reawakening. Okay, this isn't a spoiler because if you've seen the trailer or read the synopsis, then you know the premise of the plot and what triggers John to put these people in traps. But just in case, maybe a mini spoiler warning. But a true testament to how well they wrote John and how incredibly well Tobin Bell delivered John is the scene where John realizes it was all a con. It was so well done in terms of shots, score, and performance. And I genuinely felt so bad for him, despite him having put people in harrowing situations himself. That's the power of this character. That's the power of Tobin Bell's acting. What the fans really connected with back in the first film, back in the original Saw, were the traps and John Kramer. And as I said, tick, tick, tick for John Kramer and Jigsaw. So what about the traps? Previous films have usually had the format of the opening trap followed by a plot split between the trap plot and the cop plot, with the odd variation veering off from that. Saw 10 manages to do something a little different while also being familiar. It does do something we've not seen before in terms of following John, but also in terms of one of the earliest traps. Once you've seen the film, you'll know which and what I mean, but it's treading new ground, and I appreciate this little experiment because it's actually quite interesting. We also tread new ground in terms of trap victims. There are things that we've not seen before and things that we have. There is enough in terms of traps and victims to satisfy Saw fans, but also to keep it fresh and interesting. I've said interesting twice now. The traps in Saw 10 all revolve around a theme. They all tie into medical procedures because of why the victims are there in the traps. Now, I'm not big on medical procedure gore. For me, the brain surgery in Saw 3 and the autopsy in Saw 4 are the worst bits of gore in the franchise. Anything that's really grounded and based in reality gore is not for me. So I wasn't overly excited for this concept. I was a little bit nervous going in. I'm not afraid to admit that. But none of them are actually as bad as I imagined they might have been. And I ended up enjoying the creativity in them and was impressed with the special effects and the makeup for them because for the most part it all looks really realistic. Long gone are the days of pink blood from Saw 3D. Most of the gore in Saw 10 was done practically with only little touches of CGI used. And this is certainly the goriest and perhaps the meanest of all the franchise, although Saw 3D was pretty mean to women and Saw 3 could maybe give it a run for its money. But if you're a gore hound and it's the traps you're here for, then I don't think you will be disappointed. I think that this is a really good, strong trap gore entry. Just going back to what I was saying about Saw 10 treading new ground but also doing something familiar, what I mean is that it veers away from the trap plot / cop plot and strips it right back. This is Jigsaw giving people a chance to learn a life lesson. It's them in his traps, but then are punctuated with dialogue and character-driven scenes. It's not trap, trap, trap. You get your trap and then you get your recovery time. And that is the dialogue and character-driven scene. Now this may bore some people, may annoy some people, as the pace, while I feel it moves well, could also be considered quite slow and it's not action scene after action scene or trap after trap. But for me, this is really reminiscent of the original Saw, which I love so much. That film was clips of traps and the investigation that would always flip back to the bathroom, which was just Adam and Lawrence talking. It was traps punctuated with dialogue and character-driven scenes. So this is what I mean. It's stripped right back and it's reminiscent of the originals. The DP, director of photography, Nick Matthews, did an incredible job. Between him and Kevin Gruter, they delivered some genuinely gorgeous shots and scenes. Nick Matthews has said that it was important to them to pay homage to the earlier Saw films and to take inspiration from the elements of those films that they love, such as the widescreen 1.85 ratio, the gritty textures, and the bold colour use. They wanted to make sure to include those in Saw 10 in their film, and to me, they succeeded with it. The Saw colour palette is there in all its glory. You've got the cool blues, the toxic greens, the dirty yellows, and the deep red, which has always from the beginning represented Jigsaw. Is it questionable that the Mexican air/sky is yellow? Yeah. Am I willing to overlook it because it kind of works? Yeah. The great thing about having your director be the editor as well means you've got someone who really gets it technically. They see the shots they want, they know what will work in post, in editing, and Kevin Gruter really delivers on that. Saw 10 feels like this perfect little concoction, a mixture of the gritty textures of the early Saw films, but also a film that is cinematic enough to really work on the big screen. As far as the new characters go, I would say you've got a mixed bag. Some are great new additions, some are meh, and some probably just one border a little on irritating to me. I would say that the standout new additions would be Cecilia, Gabriella, and that might be it actually. I found Mateo the least enjoyable, but again, it's only personal preference. I don't know, I found him a little irritating. But they all work, they all have their place within the con, and I think that the role that they play, it works. Some of them are just there to be filler. Some of them are just there to be background faces that can be another number, another body in a trap. Cecilia Peterson is the one who has the meatiest role, I would say, and the one who has the most interesting dynamic and relationship with John Kramer. If you saw my ranking of the Jigsaw killers, if you haven't, then I will leave a link to it here and in the description box. But you will know that Amanda Young is not my favourite character in the Saw franchise, or my favourite Jigsaw killer, but this is my favourite portrayal of her. The Amanda that we got in Saw 10 was... Sorry, a car just decided to aggressively speed past. The Amanda that we got in Saw 10 was hilarious, sharp-tongued, and the most interesting. It was fun to see her with John again, as we only really got that in Saw 3, and this is a different stage in their relationship. It's earlier on, before her mental health really started to crumble, so it's an Amanda that we've not seen before. She also has some of the best lines in the film and cracked me up on multiple occasions, and not just because of the bull cut Spock haircut. Well, it kind of reminds me of Spock, but it also kind of reminds me of the aliens in Galaxy Quest. I'm sorry, that's so mean. But one of the biggest highlights for me is the score, hands down. Done as always by Charlie Clouser. His score is always one of the best bits of the Saw films. What's great in Saw 10 though is that he really has the opportunity to exercise his incredible talent and delivers some really calm, beautiful and melodic pieces that help set the emotional tone. But of course we then get the incredible Hello Zepp needle drop, I yell with joy, and we're back baby. As far as the ending goes, there is very little I can say without spoilers, so I will just say that I thought it was awesome. I was happy with it. Is it the strongest Saw ending scene? Probably not, but it's another moment where they try something new while also being familiar. But I do want to talk more about it in the spoiler section. If you haven't seen the film yet, then be aware that there is a mid-credit scene and make sure you stick around because it's again awesome. My word of choice, but it's true, it is. Alright, that is it I think as far as spoiler free goes. I'm now going to get into a few spoilers, but if you're leaving here, then let me know your thoughts on the film down below, and if you're off to see it, then I hope you have a really great time with it. And make sure before you leave that you're subscribed, and if you liked this video, then give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel and it pleases the YouTube overlords. But if you're staying, then let's talk spoilers. So, looping back round to the traps, I personally enjoyed what they did with the first one, the eye-sucking one. It's set up like the usual opening trap of the film, but then is revealed to be just John's imagination, or what could have potentially happened if the janitor had stolen the belongings. It's something we've not seen before. The people who nearly ended up in a trap but made the right choice. according to John. I know some people might think it's the whole, shower reveal, it was all a dream, Dallas kind of thing, but to me it just worked. This whole film was designed to show us the complexities of John, the philosophy and teachings behind his traps, and how he doesn't just put people in to be mean and violent. And so there are people that are on his radar, but then he feels, no, they've already learned a lesson, they've made the right choice, they don't go in the trap. But as an audience, we still get to experience the trap, we still get to experience the gore. And to say this is the one that is on the movie posters that, really marketed the film, it's probably the least gory trap. I think the image of the pipes is scarier than the actual trap itself. One problem with Saw 10, or weakness, is that it suffers from being a prequel to already established sequels. So we know what happens to both John and Amanda. This instantly removes any tension when they're put in the chains by Cecilia and Parker. And so there's me sat there going, oh man, yeah, well, I know what's going to happen here. And then they put a child in a trap. So bravo, Saw 10, for being able to still surprise me, even when you're restricted by your own film franchise history. I also loved how the film felt quite self-aware in a way. You've got trap victims and characters calling John and Amanda out on killing people. You even have some dialogue where a victim says, "You wouldn't," to which John replies, "That's right, we wouldn't, ha ha." It's a debate that has gone on for the runtime of the franchise, whether or not John Kramer is actually a killer. I've always said that those people didn't put themselves in the trap, so, John has some responsibility, doesn't he? We've got characters saying what fans have said for years. Saw 10 also has a beautifully subtle level of fan service here too, which I personally love. I said in my Letterboxd review that it wasn't just body parts that Saw 10 was littered with. There are so many little tiny nods to the original film that you may not even pick up on them. You've got victims being electrocuted through their chains, Billy the puppet being pulled by a string, not being motorised, and many, many echoes of Adam, mostly from Mateo, the irritating one. From him waking up to find himself in the warehouse, sat on the floor, pulling on his chain, saying, "Why the fuck are we here?" which echoes Adam's "What the fuck is going on?" to his reaction to someone sawing their leg off being the same wild, distressed reaction as Adam's to Lawrence sawing his leg off. I feel like the reveal of who was capturing people for the traps was meant to be a surprise, but it just wasn't. Maybe I'm wrong, but we get the reveal of Amanda and then flashbacks to scenes we have literally just seen, showing us, oh my god, it was Amanda all along. It's a minor point, I know, but I don't know. If it was meant to be a shock reveal, it didn't work. I loved that we got a little moment where we see that John would have potentially given up being Jigsaw had he actually recovered. It's interesting to think what could have happened, or to know what wouldn't have happened had he given up. And that's why John is so angry at the people who conned him. He say that they prey on the terminally ill and take the one thing they had left: hope. Another thing we've never seen done before is a trap being used to save another person. Usually the trap victims have no issue causing the death of their trap partner, but here we see John and the kid trying to save the other one. This just feels the most like a Saw film since Saw 2 or 3, and they just managed to keep that feeling while also experimenting and trying new things we've not seen before, and both work and both have a place. I mentioned earlier that some of the events or twists were quite predictable. I knew that Parker was in on it and that Cecilia would probably get an upper hand at some point, but I also knew that John and Amanda would ultimately win. I found the ending scene to be interesting, there's my word again. I mean, it's packaged as a happy one for John and Amanda. They're walking off into the golden light of the Mexican sky like they're walking off into the sunset. But come on, we know their ending, and it ain't no sunset. I also knew that once we hit Hello Zep, the credit scene was going to be in the bathroom. We'd seen a snippet of it, a little glistening taster of it in the trailer, and seeing as how we hadn't been there yet, well, it just made sense. But oh my god, I friggin' loved it. It was worth the wait. I honestly just keep thinking about it and smiling. I only went to see it this afternoon, but I just keep flashing back to it and I feel all giddy. I'm always happy to revisit the bathroom set, to have the lights flickering on above, just the way the whole scene was filmed and framed with the reveal of John and then the reveal of Hoffman. We even get a little shot of poor Adam and Zepp's decomposed bodies. And it was a pleasure to see Costa Mandalore just having an absolute ball with this scene. You could see the guy was loving it. It made it more fun for me. They're having fun, I'm having fun. It just felt like this concentrated little bubble of joy and love for this franchise. This was an exciting one for me because the original Saw is one of my favourite horror films and, well, films in general. I also consider it one of those horror films that really impacted me and helped shape me as the horror fan that I am. So it was a joy to join with other fans and see a strong, enjoyable entry in the franchise that I love. This was also exciting for me because Saw 10 is actually the first Saw film that I've seen at the cinema on the big screen. I did go to see Saw 3 on the big screen way back in the day, but I was younger and a less seasoned horror fan and completely squeamish, so I actually ended up walking out after Kerry's Trap. I know, I missed the return of Adam, but I just couldn't hack it in my young days. But this was a hell of a sequel to see on the big screen. So that is my review of Saw 10. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then give the video a thumbs up, a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. If you have seen the film, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What did you like? What did you not like? If you haven't seen the film yet and you did stick around for the spoilers and you do go to see it, then I hope you have a really good time with it. When talking about the film in the comments though, do try to avoid including spoilers, or at least heavily label that your comments contain them. If you found me through this episode and are a big fan of the Saw franchise like me, then I will leave a link to my Saw playlist here and in the description box so you can go check it out. This review is actually launching spooky season here on What the Horror, the perfect way to start in my opinion, and we have lots more spooky content coming through the month of October and all through the year. I also have more Saw content coming in the next few weeks with a ranking of the entire franchise and a deeper look at Saw 10 in a what the film did right and what the film did wrong type episode. It has also been requested that I rank these Saw traps or do a ranking of my favourite Saw traps, so that will be coming at some point if there is some interest in that. But in the meantime, thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Try to avoid any of John Kramer's traps, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye.